live. We live. All right. All right, everyone. Let's just take a breath, hold it in. We're back. MIC Podcast, episode 90. Community content. You get it all here, man. And my guest today, you've probably seen him melt your face as a part of the band Nashville. He's a singer, songwriter, musician, guitarist, community activist, business owner. I could go on, but I'm gonna let him do, most of the talk. We got Byron Nash in the building. What's going on, man? Chilling, man. Good to sit down and talk with you, man. It's really
Pleasure
an
to be
honor
here.
and a
Thank you.
pleasure, man. No, absolutely, bro. So I just kind of, just want to kind of get into just like a little bit about your history, just for people who may not know and who may have seen you perform, who are, fans of yours for sure. So, where in Pittsburgh are you from, or are you even from Pittsburgh originally?
I'm from here originally, but we moved a lot when I was young, and then we moved to Baltimore. So I have Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Albuquerque is what I would consider as part of my home. But this would be this is where I've been the most and the longest, yeah. But leaving kind of made it when I came back, it wasn't home, and then it became home again.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm from Maryland myself, so I lived kind of in between Baltimore and DC, probably more towards DC than Baltimore. It's probably an hour and some change from Baltimore, 45 from DC. Yeah, facts. So just how was your childhood? Growing up before you moved to Baltimore, and then even Albuquerque.
Just regular kid stuff, and breakdancing on the corner and riding bikes and getting in trouble. Not bad trouble, just staying out past the street lights type shit. And then my mom's like, hey, we're going to move to Baltimore. I was like, I don't want to leave my friends. It was the best thing because I would have been stuck in the space that we were in. We didn't have a lot of money. We lived in Braddock before I moved to Baltimore. And it was a culture shock because when I moved there, it was that's the first time I saw rich people, rich students, people showing up in Rolls Royces. I'm like, where am I? Kids with credit cards and stuff in 7th grade. So it was it threw my life for a loop, but it also opened me up to a lot of different things. And what the music scene did there with that Virginia, Baltimore, and DC kind of triangle thing, if it weren't for that, I wouldn't play the way that I play, for sure.
So were you, and that even just kind of leads me into my next question, but even before that, what about when you moved to Baltimore, what did that open up for you?
I think it was just seeing other ways of living. It can be, we're a small town. If you grew up here and you never leave, you think this is what it is, and it's not what it is at all. There, because it was so multicultural, I was exposed to more, whether it was financial background, education, just cultural. I never met an African person until I was in Baltimore, right? So things like that you kind of take advantage of as a kid. You don't think about it. Then as an adult, you're like, thank God I had that exposure. It was thick, right? I just never saw that many different cultures because where I lived, it was either all black or it was black and white, but we were all poor, so you kind of only get one, perspective, and there it was everything. And it was always changing. But that's where the music thing really, I wasn't a musician there. I was just a fan. I was a skater.
Oh, okay. Got you. Yeah. So at what point did music just take an influence on your life?
I mean, it did right out the jump. I was a weird little kid. I wouldn't play outside with my friends. I'd stay inside, listen to my mom's records because she had a crazy collection. And she trusted me with her music. So I would be listening to vinyl at 5, P-Funk and Heat Wave and all that old soul. But she also didn't just listen to soul. She listened to Chicago and Tina Marie and rock music, and I just got it all. And I was hooked right from the jump. She was taking me to concerts and stuff like that. And then it wasn't until later when I was 15, I got a guitar. And that was influenced by hard rock, heavy metal, kind of the 80s era, big hair, spandex, explosions, the whole over the top sex, drugs, rock and roll. That hooked me right in.
You said no, I mean it. You and many other people, you know what I mean?
It was the energy of it.
That's what I'm saying. That was the allure.
Yeah.
Just that whole,
they have
culture.
everything I want.
Facts,
when you're 15 years old, you're like,
Right,
you
and
know?
then like even just because you said you were into the skater culture too, just like that comes with like its own like kind of fan base too.
I mean, it's interesting because skater culture, a lot of people don't know this. So there's like two versions of it. Or maybe three: 70s, and then you have 80s, and then you have the resurgence. The resurgence was like X Games, Tony Hawk. That came much later. But the hot time for me was like when Tony Hawk was like 15 and the top selling skater, right? So, but what I learned from that culture, one, that's what got me into Metallica, because I was reading Thrasher magazine. Metallica had a skateboard. The guy who did the art, it was just like this full page ad. And I was like, what's Zorlac skateboards? And then who's Pusshead? And so it was always like culture leading into a new culture. But skate culture was so independent, but it was the first like introduction to like being an entrepreneur. So like having your own t-shirts, having your own brand, like what team are you on? Like, how did you dress? How did your hair look? What were your stickers like? What trucks are you skating on? What wheels do you have? That was the early seed, you know what I mean? Like, and we would like wait for the new board to come out. Like we'd be freaking out. And so in that culture, that just expanded to other things, because that wasn't really a hair band metal culture. That was more punk rock and hardcore. So all my friends who were really into that stuff, that's how I got into Bad Brains and Circle Jerks and all this kind of like really underground alternative stuff. I was also listening to like Motley Crue and Whitesnake at the same time. I was just a weird little black kid. Like it'd be LL and Luther Vandross, and then I'd be like, all right, let me put this Metallica record on, which didn't really fare well in black culture in Baltimore back in the day.
Yeah, nah, facts. Just like even when you were young and like in that culture, like did you kind of like at least try your hand and like building your brand, or like were you just pretty much skating for like the majority of the time?
I was just skating. I didn't have a band until like late 20s. I was a late bloomer with it. I was a fan all day, but I just was like kind of insecure about my playing and wasn't that good and couldn't read music. So all that stuff always hindered me from like celebrating that I play guitar. I was like, people would find out like years later, like, oh, you play guitar? I'm like, I love guitar. So in the beginning it was like skate culture. And then what changed it was I moved back to from Baltimore to Pittsburgh, became a single parent at 18, started my whole life over, didn't know nobody here. And that's when, like, okay, guitar was like my therapy to get through the hard times, because I was 18 with a baby. You know what I mean? So that's kind of when it started.
So you were just strictly consumer in Baltimore, then you moved to Pittsburgh, and like that's when did you get your first guitar back home in Pittsburgh?
I got it in Baltimore. I had it. You kind of, you like your bike, you like your this, you like this. It was one of those things. But the music was always at the forefront, but not as a player. I was just a fan all day. And then
what even led you to get that guitar? Just because like you were just like a fan of just like all those things, like
I went to music stores all the time, and Sam Goody started selling instruments.
Oh damn!
And I told my mom, I was like, "There's this really cool guitar." I didn't think she was going to get it. She got it, and it was over.
Yeah, sure.
It was a wrap after that.
So what led you like moving back to Pittsburgh?
Survival. Just things were crazy, and I had to get out of Baltimore, and it's the height of the crack era, so it was like, the wire's not fake, like it's real, y'all. I was like, get me out of here. It's not Hollywood. That's how it was. I'm like, it doesn't feel safe here. Moved back here and just started from scratch, from zero. Been here ever since.
When you moved back, was guitar playing at the forefront? Was just like, all right, I'm rebuilding my life. I have a daughter now, or like you said, like you have a daughter. Okay, son, I'm sorry about that. But yeah, like so, like you have a child now, and were you just trying to pretty much provide for you and your child, or like was it just like
just dropped out of high school before I had him, like found out about him the day after he was born, ended up with custody 2 weeks after, and had him ever since. So it was like right from the get-go, like, okay, we got to eat, we got to survive. Music was still just like therapy. It wasn't like, I'm gonna start a band. Like that wasn't anywhere in the spectrum at all.
How was that just like processing for you? Just like, kind of, all right, like I have to not only rebuild my life, but rebuild my life as a single parent now. Like,
I mean, in the moment, it's just like, it sucks, You're like, what did I do? Like, what did I get myself into? But it's like the single most important thing that made my life better, because I don't know if I would have had the discipline if I didn't have that. I don't know if I would have taken these other strides towards like education or business or just getting my act together because I didn't have it. I was kind of hopeless at the time. And I wasn't a bad kid, just my situation was a hot mess. And that gave me a reason to kind of keep it on track and think about something outside of myself and where are we going to take this thing. And I didn't know, it's just like one day at a time, as long as we're eating and the lights are on, we're okay, you know.
So at what point did it switch from therapy to actual performing to actual like, trying to get yourself out there?
I think I started like taking these small risks of like playing in front of people, be terrified. And I met one of my neighbors was a deadhead, and he got me into like Fish and the jam band scene, and that just seemed like a more welcoming scene than metal. Metal kind of went through this weird thing where it was like it got stale and people weren't like welcoming. If you're not a real metalhead, and especially being black in metal, it's like you're always being questioned if you're real and if you're legit. I'm like, dude, I will out metal you all day, but I know what I'm up against, So in that culture, the jam band culture was so welcoming and opening, like drum circles and stuff like that. And I remember like kind of playing at a coffee shop with my friends, just kind of banging on some bongos type of thing. That was sort of the beginning, not for money. We weren't a band. It was just like I sat in on a song. And then I bought my first real guitar, and just started practicing like 5 hours a day.
How long after was that?
It was around the same time.
Oh, okay. So like, just like in
Yeah,
that
I was just
same
shedding.
thing.
I was just at home, just playing. I was playing so much on the wah pedal that like I had a cramp in my foot. Like I was just like every day it was like 4 to 5 hours practice.
What was it like just, just from what you remember, like your favorite, just like, memory, just like, from those times? I know like, as, you performed and all that stuff, it just kind of gets, diluted down. But
I think it was those moments where I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound too bad. Like I would listen to that if it weren't me. And that it was just these little like micro moments that would let me know, like, just keep going. Because I made a pact with myself that I was going to play music, whether I played in front of anybody, whether I recorded, that I'm signing up for life. So it wasn't about the attention. It wasn't about records. It wasn't about a band. I'm just going to dedicate myself to the guitar until I die. And then everything else started to kind of come.
Yeah, no, I mean I feel like that's how really all things work, right? Like if you're doing it for any extra, reason, that like just any external reason, just material, physical things, whatever, like it's just fleeting. You're always going to be, just running on the absolute.
Depends. I mean, I'm not going to knock anybody else's, interests or whatever, but for me, I had to stay true to it, and it wasn't about like whether or not I was in a cool band. I eventually was in really cool bands, but I think it's because that was why, because of how I approach guitar, it led me to that as compared to like chasing that other like accolade. You know what I mean?
What were you doing to like stay afloat? Just like in the meantime, just from day to day.
School, I went on public assistance, and I had to like apply for grants to go to school for graphic design. But at the time that didn't exist because one, you didn't see a lot of men, especially black, with a kid that young. So all of the grants and all the scholarships were going to women, single parent women, for nursing. So that's when the nursing boom really kicked in. And I really wanted to go for graphic design. But at the time, people didn't think of art as something that you can make money with. And I ended up going through all these hoops and getting the, scholarships and the right grades and everything. Went to CCAC for graphic design, ended up learning ceramics, came out of there, became a pottery teacher at Manchester Craftsmen's Guild, was reading a rock magazine at the time as a fan, and they had an internship for a graphic designer, applied for the internship, got it, but because computers had just kind of come in on my last semester, I wasn't as skilled as the other people who were way younger at the time, but I had all this creativity, and I'm like, I know I can do stuff, but I don't know how to do this stuff. No one taught me. And then my boss came in one day and he was like, hey, does anyone know anything about the hair metal band Rat? And it's like, I'm the only black dude in the office, kind of shy, super shy. And I like kind of raise my hand and everyone starts laughing. And he's like, he pulls me in his office. He's like, what do you know about Rat? And I was just like fact after fact. He's like, what else do you know? Like, especially about hard rock and metal. And I just had it all covered. And he's like, hold on a second. Have you ever written like a CD review? And I'm like, I've written a couple for fun. And that was how I got into the music business. So I transitioned from an intern doing art to a writer. So I started reviewing CDs. And then from that, I latched onto it super fast. And then like from that, I became local music editor. So then I knew all the artists in the city because they're trying to get written about. And then I started going to the shows and going to the clubs and knowing who's who. And this guy played bass in this band. And then from that, I became managing editor, started contacting record labels and interviewing national acts. And because I learned photography at CCAC, I was taking photos of Janet Jackson, Boyz II Men, Britney Spears, like was doing all these crazy things. So I was like,
what was that time in your life like?
that's the best time.
Yeah,
That's
that's
so great.
wow. Like,
I mean, outside of the job that I have now, that is definitely the coolest job I've ever had because that's how I learned the business, like understanding press, media, photos. Bands have these terrible band photos. I mean, they would send them to us. So I'm looking at Lenny Kravitz's photo versus like a local band in like Crafton, right? Now they could have equally as good of a photo, but you have to understand how a photo looks to have it look good. If you're competing with that, so you have to be on that level. So I would just do the comparison, and then we always like my band. I started while I was at the magazine. I actually put the wanted ad in the magazine while working there. That's how it started.
crazy. So just even like that's nuts. Like, how long were you reviewing CDs before you jumped into you said photography?
I mean, I probably made really fast strides about a year and a half. Yeah, it was super fast. It was like our intern, local music editor, managing editor to running the magazine with my boss. It was like super fast.
Did you ever give any, I don't know, just any subpar ratings on any CDs?
I mean, yeah, in the beginning, I was like brutally honest because I was such a fan of music, But then one time I went a little hard on this really big band. They still do really well here. And they were like the hometown heroes. And I didn't have that relationship with them because I was from Baltimore at that point in my life, And then I went to a show and everyone's like, "Yeah, can't wait till they come on." And they came on. I was like, and then they did a Prince cover. And I was like, "Oh, no." So I wrote the article the way I would talk to my friend.
Yeah.
It was a kiss of death because the hate mail I got was astounding. Only black dude in the rock scene writing at a white rock magazine.
Yeah, I can only imagine
Lord.
the post that is the like.
I learned real quick. Okay, choose
right.
my words wisely. Still be honest, but have a little bit more tact. And what it taught me was, because I knew what I knew really well. My boss would give me. I was getting CDs. My office, they gave me office CDs stacked. I'd be listening to because they're coming from the labels. They want you to write about it, right? This is all pre-internet, so you didn't have, I'm gonna download it. There's no streaming. They would send you the promo copy stamped, you know what I mean? And then you'd review it. And if you review, let's say you have a publicist who has, I don't know, someone really major that you want at the time. Well, they probably have 20 people underneath that are like, there's the mid-grade and then there's the newbie. So then you end up writing about the newbie so you can possibly get the mid-grade. And then if you get the mid-grade and you write about them or review the CD, then eventually you might get so-and-so for the cover. There was a whole strategy.
Was that like
that.
Too much politics for you that like you'd prefer?
No, I get it. It's just part of the game. I mean, labels are what they are, especially back then. That was before labels got disrupted by Napster and stuff like that. But it taught me a valuable lesson about knowing how to be, where to be, and just kind of seeing things for what they were and just navigating around it.
How would you say like just even reviewing the CDs, taking the picture for like the bands, all of that gumbo, how did that lead into, you carrying yourself and navigating, being a performer?
I mean, that's what did it. I was learning from, when I interviewed a band, first I had a job I had to get the best quotes. But because most artists on a national level really don't feel like talking to nobody, right? Like you're going to ask a stupid question, not you, but like most people in magazines aren't music fans. So when Taylor Swift has so-and-so asking a question that doesn't make any sense, she's like, "You don't even listen to my music. Why am I talking to you?" So it becomes time over, and sometimes, and if a lot of the times you would be their 10th interview that day, right? They're on tour, but they're in the hotel room doing phone interviews for 3 hours. And so how many times you're going to hear like, "So what was the inspiration for that song? Did you even listen to the song?" Or they say the song name wrong or something like that. So I just being a musician, not like out in the game, but like being a musician fan, I would talk to them like a colleague, and they would be like, "Oh, you heard that part?" And then they would just open up, and I would get the best quotes. I mean, I was invited on tours where like I would interview them, and then they would call the magazine and be like, "Hey, can you come to New York with us?" I'm like, "Oh, I got to stay here. I got a kid."
That's dope though. So like, were you always in a band, or like, did you have like a solo run? Like, I'm not sure like how that works. Like, playing guitar.
My first band I started at the magazine called Sporadic. It was a 3-piece like funk fusion kind of jam bandy thing. It'd be like a mix of Primus, Incubus, Funkadelic, and Fish probably. Just doing whatever, all these weird time signatures, and like the songs were kind of long, and because we didn't know what we were doing, so we just played. And people were like, "Oh, you got an hour set," so we'd have to like fill it up.
Who'd you form the band with at the top?
I put out a one ad. It was actually the guy, the drummer. I met him in photography class in school, and so we just played as a duo for the longest time, just jamming Metallica covers and stuff like that, just playing really weird, odd stuff. And then we got a bass player, and because of the magazine, it was easy to kind of figure out where I could get in and play a gig. And then just started gigging. Sucked, come out the gate, terrible, making all the errors on stage and being okay with it.
Do you remember like some of the places that you perform still around today, or like have we seen some come and go?
I've seen everything come and go.
Yeah, right.
I'm 50.
Yeah.
So I've seen.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
Get the.
Yeah.
Man,
So I've seen.
You look great for me.
I've seen this whole scene revitalized like 7 times. So yeah, there's, I'm in a strip. I'm like, that was Whiskey Dix, that was Metropole, that was Rosebud, that wasn't anything, So seeing all of that change and still being able to navigate, I think a part of it is just because I saw that stuff in the kind of the heyday of it.
Yeah, right. How long were you just gigging around before, things got momentum? Did things get momentum when you were just in that band that you're from the magazine, or were you at?
Honestly, it did, because I think, one, there weren't a lot of black people in the rock scene. There was like 2.
You and Prince.
Well, I mean, in Pittsburgh, it was like me and one other dude, and maybe a third guy. But because we played band competitions and we played these rock shows, what we were doing, like a lot of those bands were kind of covering artists or trying to sound like who was hot at the time. And I didn't want to sound like that. I didn't even like that stuff. But I'm like, let's practice. We practiced so much. I love that band because our practice ethic was crazy. We would rehearse 3 days a week. And on Sundays, it would be an 8-hour rehearsal. So even though we weren't good at first, we got really good pretty fast because we were just tight. There was like the synergy going on. So I really like that about that band. And it's just kind of the pureness of like rock and roll and like just do it yourself, like hanging flyers and like, all right, like back in the day, like, again, pre-social media and everything, you had to have a flyer up on a pole. You had to pass out flyers at a show. And I'm like, all right, I'll just outwork everyone. I was like, okay, you have a lot of flyers around? I'll triple it. I would just work. I would spend more on flyers. I would make the colors different. Everyone's flyers were black and white. Mine are going to be neon green. Can't miss it. So it was like things like that. They were just, I'm doing the same work. I'm just doing more of it in a different lane. It was completely the skate culture. And also would help with the magazine because we were kind of independent. We had this like us against the world. It's like an independent label type of thing. We delivered, like we had a distro deal with, it was NRM, it was National Record Mart back in the day, big record chain. And so we would drop off all the magazines there, the monthly, but then we would go to every record store in the city, like 2 days of delivery. So I knew all the record stores. I knew most of them already because of being a fan, but then we would hit them all and I would get to see how people's flyers look. I'm like, I don't want mine to look like that. Or we'd be at a, green light or a red light. My boss had this big old junky green truck and all the flyers would be like in the same place. And I'm like, what if I just put my flyer right there? I was like, nobody would do that. Or I would put it lower. So if you were in a car, here's our flyer, here's everybody else's. So I did that for like 2 years straight. And people were like, oh, we've heard of Sporadic, but they'd never heard us. They just kept seeing it over and over and over. I was just relentless. And I would take a pay cut so I could have an ad in the magazine.
Oh, damn. Dog, it sounded like you were working and you were
I was just grinding, dude.
Yeah,
I was
nah,
just in
man,
the mix.
real shit. Yeah, you were just on bench shit, honestly. And so, how long were you with the band's name was Sporadic? So, how long were you just like ripping and running with them? How did that kind
Probably
of dissolve?
5 years,
Oh,
6 years.
damn. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Then we started getting like side stage opening for Dave Matthews. We started doing like, we just were getting placed in these great spots because we were just different. And I just made us present, you know?
Was there any time during that run that I don't know, things maybe weren't picking up like you thought they would? Again, I mean, like, I know that you have a kid in the mixture. Again, like,
It was one of those things, is like, no matter how hard I went, if something popped off, I couldn't do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, there was like a little bit of a limit on it, because I'm like, well, all right. Like, I had to turn down a touring band gig. They're like, hey, we're not really feeling our guitar player. We want to replace him with you. And I couldn't take it, because like I had to do what I had to do. I'm glad I didn't. But like, there were a lot of things that kept happening like that. I'm like, am I ever going to like break through this like thing, But then the band that did the most noise would be Formula 412. So through Sporadic, everyone was doing their thing, but that was sort of like basically like the Roots, but like heavy. Yeah, all black band, top producers in the city, rapper, like the guy kind of like handpicked everybody. And I just thought I was being a session guy. I was like, I can play this. This is easy. I'm like, because it's hip hop. So there was sort of like a regiment thing. I'm used to like organic and like coming up with stuff on the spot. He's like, no, just play. I'm like, okay, I can do that. I come from metal, so it's like I can do that all day.
I can do like the structure, like, kind of sound thing. Mm-hmm.
And then like that, the original formation of that band, I remember the tryouts. It was me, Daru Jones. So Daru Jones is a drummer from here, but he's actually from Detroit, played with Dilla and stuff. And we were kind of in the same band, like the same style bands around that time. So they were like trying us out. But now he like plays for Jack White, he's like probably the most popular session drummer in the scene, like internationally, And I'm like thinking, who's playing Risk together, But like, that's the thing, you never know where you're going to end up. And that band did a lot of stuff. So that was the band that kind of like, I truly learned like everything I had done before that was pretty good. That's where it took it up a notch. We had videos, we did, the photos were true photo shoots. We were in the studio all the time. We were, and we're selling out our own shows without an opener, like at big venues, like 900 plus venues in Pittsburgh. It was like wild. But then we started opening, like we opened for Pharrell and NERD, Busta Rhymes, everyone from Fantasia to, we were like right on the cusp.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. Really gnarly, man. I was like, and like that's pretty, because like you were running with Sporadic for, like you said, 5 years, right? And then like you got the Formula 412 gig. Like, I mean, like how was that send off? Like, were your bands like, were your bandmates like pretty amicable about that? Like, was it like a?
Well, Sporadic had kind of fizzled at that point, and so
for any particular reason, or just
I think it's hard to keep bands together and like life and goals, like everyone's. Yeah, like I'm the single dad of the band, but I'm the oldest one, but I'm like leading the band and like financing it and stuff. And I think just what happens is that you don't necessarily grow apart as friends. We're still friends to this day, but like maybe this person doesn't want to play that music, or maybe they want to try something else. It's just a growth thing. And it was time. It was fine. Yeah, like it wasn't going to get any bigger unless I did something bigger. You know what I mean? Like whether it's like stickers or CDs or find a manager, you know what I mean? Like kind of hit the ceiling. So
I mean, like it's good enough, like it's good that like you had that foresight to be like, okay, like, just kind of, it's kind of winding down. Let's call it. And, like,
yeah, like the thing is like when you're younger, you have a lot of time. I was a single parent, but I made time. So a lot of people follow the path of what they think we're supposed to do, like go to school, come out, graduate, go to college, come out, get a job, find a nice person, settle down, have the kids. I just didn't feel like that. I already had the kid early. So I didn't think that was my knocked out, like, I didn't think that was my path.
List, like, you were ahead of the class with
that wasn't my path, man. I never felt like I fit into that mold.
I feel you.
You know what I mean? Like, I love my son to death. We're tight as hell.
Yeah.
It's not about him as much as I just didn't think all the other things were necessarily the path. Like, there was just I knew there was more out there. I just didn't know what it was.
I feel you on that, man. Like I went to college, graduated, but I don't feel like, and let me not disregard it.
No, it's important.
It's
just the path.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's just the path. Like if I could have chosen it, like if I could just kind of have a bird's eye view and maybe choose a different, I don't think I would have necessarily went that route.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just because, that's just like really not where my interests lie.
I mean, I went to community college. I went to CCAC right around the corner.
And you probably learned way more than
I learned a ton.
You went to an instant,
Then it threw me into the world, and the world was my college.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I mean, if it weren't for all the things that I did in the past, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today with the world. And a lot of that it's all back to the magazine and the skate culture, self-promotion, being consistent.
And that's like
branding.
That's like a really, really good fucking point just with all that. Like even when you said that, like I was just like, damn, like they were really just, even in society wise, man, like they were really like the first wave of true entrepreneurs that was really just
like
from the man and just like really just
on that gritty part. Yeah,
just like really in tune with just like the culture, the people, they
spoke directly to the consumer.
They got boots to the ground, all like that sort of thing, man. I'm just like, damn, that's so fucking true. And like, like if you come from that culture, like picking that back up, is no thing.
Who I am.
Yeah, and then like you definitely have like the edge up of people who are just trying to find their footing and like get their sea legs and that sort of like, vein.
I think that's where, usually age seems like a curse, but I feel like it's a blessing.
And fuck that, bro. Like, I can't wait to just get old and like learn and just like, cause like, I even like kind of had a talk with myself the other day. I'm just like, damn, like every time I think I have this level of like, okay, like I think I'm all right with just like my knowledge of life. It's just like, God, it's just
life is like, oh yeah?
Yeah, no, it's like, no, sit your ass down. And they're like, nah.
You don't know.
Well, you feel me? So like, I mean, I just can't wait to like at least just kind of get that self-actualization, just like, again, just to experience. That's
and it
all
keeps
it
changing.
Is.
Like right now I'm in a really good place in my life. There's been dips, there's been times I'm like, damn, I was really off the marker. Like, why was that? Was it emotional? Was it my past? Was I carrying baggage or whatever? Just bad choices. But I needed that to say, oh, I don't want that. You know what I mean? And like now I'm like, oh, anything I really want to do, I can do. I just got to like stay on my grind. But I don't mean, when I say grind, my old grind was like just grind your face off and just work until like you're bleeding and like, you know what I mean? No sleep, just go.
Yeah, look at my scars.
Yeah.
I'm grinding.
Yeah, it wasn't, that's not sustainable. Now the grind is different. It's like, all right, do I know I need to push because I got 5 shows in 4 days? Cool. What does the day after all of that look like? What is the self-care? Because if I don't do that, I'm not going to be able to continue the hustle. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to have the energy for that thing that might be that one thing that takes it this direction.
Dog, it's kind of what you said like earlier, like about the tact. Just like even like when you were reviewing CDs, just like at the beginning you were brash. Yo, you shit his ass, bro.
Yeah.
God, it's not, like you can say that just in a different cadence with different stuff, and I just think that applies to life too. It's just like, all right, you can grind, but again, it's like, what does the day after look like? There could be some strategic elements,
Yeah, where's recovery? Where's like introspection? Where's like thinking about? Where's like having like, because we all got friends, but you got friends that can really call you out on the thing and be like, "Hey, I need you."
Dog, I just got.
You could
called
be
out
better,
yeah,
right?
No,
you know what I mean, and not be mad about it.
Bro, absolutely. I mean, me and Mike. I mean, like that is our entire relationship. You know what I mean, like, and it's not like, he's doing it to, like make me feel away or just like,
it's out of love.
Exactly. At the end of the day, and I know that, and like I trust that. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So I can even process and be like, okay, yeah, like I maybe I do gotta work on this. Maybe I do gotta reflect on that. Like maybe I was off the mark there a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like you definitely need someone like that, which leads me to my next question, right? So with Formula 412, you're opening for all these bands, right? Or just like the bands, like these big acts.
Oh no, we were like, we were in the mix, dude.
That's nuts. And like, how long were you ripping and running with them?
7 years.
God,
that's the band I was in the longest.
Yeah,
that's the band I did the most with.
Yeah, no, I mean,
that was the biggest growth spurt.
If you want to just give like a brief, just like what was that time like? I mean, were you? I don't want to say like it was sensory overload, but like that's like a step up from like playing like really local gigs.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was around the time when Wiz and Mac were just about to blow. We were all hitting at the same time. We were actually all in the source at the same time about Pittsburgh. There was an article about Pittsburgh acts, right? We stood out because we were a band. So we played shows with those guys. But the hardest part was making sure we weren't compared to the Roots because it was an all-black band. There was no other band in hip-hop but the Roots, right? So I brought the rock element, and it was kind of weird. You had like half of us came from a band perspective, and the other half came from a hip-hop perspective. I'd never made music that way. Like I get an idea, I record it, I work on it. I never had, a plethora of snares. You know what I mean? Like it's a different creativity. I'm like, okay, we're just listening to snares right now, It was a different thing. But then that taught me a lot. So me and the keyboard player, Akil Asun, one of the best producers, I think, period. That became like my musical brother in the band. And then Masai was the leader, the vocalist. He was already signed. He had already done stuff with like his bandmate or his group bandmate, Strict Flow was the group.
That sounds super familiar.
It's a dude that started the studio in Millville. That was
okay,
yeah. So this is all really intertwined.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I learned a lot from him because do you remember? I don't know how old you are, but there's a group called PM Dawn.
PM Dawn. No, I'm only 27, so
okay.
Yeah.
So they're like early '90s. They're kind of like hippie hip hop. But they were big. They had big singles. But he used to like be their tour manager. So through that, he learned the business. So I was learning I had learned a certain scale of the business, like more from the media side. He was like running like tours. You know what I mean? And so together we were like, we got the media together. He knew how, you know what I mean? And like, we just worked. I mean, it was Voltron. He and I, we messed our money up over that band. We messed our girlfriends up over that band. We were all in because we just were so close, and you could feel it was close. Like all of a sudden, like we're getting invited to play like overseas and play in this studio and like recorded. What's his name? Did all the Jay-Z stuff. We recorded that studio in New York. Like just being in these spaces, I'm like, yo, it's about to be on.
What was the energy in the city? Like, I mean, bro, you got Yo, Mac, Wiz. Like, what is the energy in the city
it was a very special time.
Yeah,
it was a very special time because hip hop had kind of risen to the surface, and like the multicultural underground element of it had really come up. It was great. It was beautiful.
Oh, I mean, haven't you seen the city in that kind of same shooting atmosphere since? Like,
I hate to say it, like back in my day, but no, it was wild, man. It was because everybody was doing their thing and it was all working and it was starting to get like national attention.
Yeah. I mean, I can only imagine, man. Like, that just sounds fucking awesome. So when did your time wind down with Promo 412?
It was like, I don't know, 2011-ish. It just kind of started hitting this thing, and again, you got to stay on the same page. It's communication at the end of the day. Band's a business, right? But honestly, the lead singer or rapper, he moved to Arizona because of his job. He had a really good paying job, which was helping fund it. I made a lot of money as a bartender. I was funding it. And so it was sort of like, all right, it's cool if you got to make that move, but what do we do? And I, as an artist, was just like, I just want to play guitar, man. Like at the end of the day, I was just like, my shows were every 4 or 5 months. Like now, last year I played 150 gigs. Like the year before that, 100. I've never done that in my entire life, so I just wanted to play and get better. And it was just like, it wasn't a clash. It was just like growth apart. And then the band kind of fizzled, and then I played a gig. I threw some people together just for fun. And then people were like, yo, what's the name of that band? Didn't have a name, called it Plan B. Was that the Roots Picnic? And saw a Plan B commercial. And I was like, oh. I didn't know. I didn't even know what it was, because part of it was my original drummer from Sporadic, his name's Bill. He and I would record riffs. I got into recording and I would just record all these ideas and I would call it Plan B because it was Byron and Bill. So that was sort of, it wasn't even like Plan B to 412. It was just a quick idea because the promoter's like, I need a name for the flyer today. I'm like, yeah. And then that kind of like launched it. Like that kind of launched me as myself. because I was struggling within the band of like, if this were over tomorrow for how much I bring to it, who am I? Like if someone like came up to me and said, "Oh, what do you do?" I'm in this band that just broke up. You know what I mean? Like, so that's when I really started thinking about how do I define myself as myself.
And man, dog, dog, that's just that's a crazy arc. Like that's just such a wild arc of this life. Like that's crazy.
It was so nutty.
But how did you link up with Jaquay May?
So, funny backstory. All right, so what was it?
And for people who don't know, before you get into it, Jaquay May is the lead singer, right? Of your band Nashville.
Yeah. So I was in gig mode. I was just like, you know what? I'm going to play some shows. I got invited to play these things. I got invited to play Redfish Bowl in Lawrenceville. It's an art community thing. And I'd already played the arts festival with the drummer that I have now, Jules, and his brother. And then I ran right over to play this gig. And I was doing like a cover, Ain't No Sunshine by Bill Withers. And she was in the audience. She just started. Jaquaya will sing on the bus. She'll sing at the bank. She'll sing in church. She'll sing in a job interview. She's, that's just how she is. So she's singing, and I kind of hear this big soulful voice, and I'm like, and she's standing up too. So I'm like, well, might as well finish the song with me. Normally I would have been offended because it would have felt kind of rude, but it sounded good. So I was like, all right, fine. And we finished it, and it sounded great, and people really loved it. And someone took a clip of it, put it on Instagram, tagged her. I reached out to her and said, hey, we should do something. I'm trying to do like a solo record. And artists say that all the time, and they never hook up. Let's collab. Right? And they never follow through.
God, I fucking hate all those.
Right, yeah. You're like, no, I really want to do this. And they're like, yeah, sure, whatever.
It's cool if you can. You can start with that too. Like, I'm not going, like, it's not going to be me. Like, yeah, like, I feel you with that.
Yeah, so I'm just gigging at that point. That's probably June, July. And then around September, at the Overlook stage down there where the Arts Fest was this year. And I said, hey, are you available? And I hadn't heard from her at all, and I wasn't chasing her or anything. I just hadn't heard from her. I was like, hey, you should come down. I was like, I got a really good band for this one. You should come down and do that song. I'm not worried about rehearsal. I trust you. Let's just do it. Didn't know her from anybody, but I just had a feeling. Just from that little thing, yeah. And my band's looking at me like, you want to get her over for a rehearsal? I'm like, no, just trust me on this. And she ripped it. Stupid ripped it. We're headbanging. I'm jumping. There's a picture. She's headbanging. I'm like over top of her with the guitar, like in the air. People came across the bridge because of her voice, and I had somebody film it. And that was kind of it. And then I just started reaching out. I was playing a lot of solo gigs. And I started inviting her to sing on like the last like half hour. So I'd play a 3-hour set, come down for the last half hour. I'll give you a few bucks. And we just started vibing like that. Probably did 5 of those. Leading up to the end of the year, Cultural Trust reaches out. They asked me, it was called the Byron Nash Trio because I didn't have a good name. And they're like, can you headline? Do you want to headline like first night, New Year's Eve? And there's been no locals to ever do it. It's always national acts. I said, absolutely. And then leading up to it, I just had this idea. I'm like I found out that like I went to see Benji, and then Live from the City was on stage, and I didn't know, like, my son was with me. He's like, Dad, that's the cousin I was telling you about. Live's our cousin. I was like, wait, what? So we found out, like, we met each other when he came off stage, but he's related to Benji. So I'm like, wait, are we related? So there's like this weird network.
Are you and Benji related?
He's Live's cousin. Live is definitely my cousin. So it's kind of a distant thing, but yeah, right. Didn't know that, but we all found it out when Benji did this show. And so I was like, what if I had everybody on stage for that New Year's Eve thing? My son played keyboards, Live as the MC, dropped my buddy Evan on guitar, who's been shredding with me for years, Jules on drums, Jaquay on vocals. So I had this massive group. I had a week and a half to put it together. And we rehearsed, and I told everybody, say, hey, the band's already getting paid what they were offered. All I can offer you is like this platform. I just have a feeling it's going to be a good idea. If you don't want to do it, it's totally cool. There were other people that were invited. Some people didn't want to do it. They're like, no, I need to be paid. I said, okay, no problem. They're like over 10,000 people. We had mad coverage on TV. We were in the news. Like, I knew that from the media perspective, like, the coverage was good. Yeah, like I couldn't even like afford what coverage we got. Everybody rehearsed. I said, I'll hire the film crew. I'll pay $1,000. You can use all the content from what I'm paying for. You don't have to chip in. And then that started it. And then it was like right before we were asked to play on PTL, Pittsburgh Today Live. And I hit Jaquay up. I'm like, I feel like it'd be better if you play with us. Do you wanna be on TV with us? She was like, sure. So we did one of my songs, and then as soon as that New Year's Eve was over, the next day I'm like, you should probably join the band. And then it started. And she and I started rehearsing once or twice a week. We started doing a bunch of duo gigs, and then through the duo gigs, the band got more gigs, and it just has been elevating. And I've done way more in a short amount of time with no music out with this band than I have in all the projects I've ever done combined.
Holy shit. That is a whole...
Now we're recording.
Yeah, we know, right?
I'm like, oh shit, we better do this music part.
Man, what?
Did everything else.
Wow, bro,
Let's
like,
put out a song.
that's like, dog, that story is incredible, man. Like, and just, so like, your son plays keys as well.
Makes
Damn,
beats.
wow. So like, and
We opened up with one of his songs. I was like, what's that? That's hard.
when it,
I was like, can we use that?
yeah,
That's fire.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like, what was Emma like playing with your son up there?
That was his first show. Yeah, it was great. It was great because we like practiced and we had Christmas and we went to Maryland for Christmas and we're like listening to the set over and over and he's like really studying the chords and we just all kind of came together and did it.
Like, what was the energy at that show like?
It was almost like I didn't get to enjoy it because it was so high level that it was like I was watching myself and the stress and pressure. Because part of me was like, did I make a mistake? Are these cats ready for this scale? Because not everybody was used to that, right? Son had never played a show that big. No one had ever played a show that big in the band except for me, right? Because we opened for 50 Cent in New York. So it was like, I had played in front of 10,000 people. That doesn't scare me. It's like 4 people that I'm like,
Yeah,
you know
like
what I
we're
mean?
more intimate settings where
Yeah.
like I like the Bigelows. People kind of get faces at like a certain point. It's like, okay, like it's just people, you know. But
So it was like really surreal, but I knew that like there's something weird. And maybe this comes with age where it's like sharing and giving takes it to the next level. My band could have done fine. It would have been great, you know, but it was much better having it with everybody. And then we all kind of elevated and started doing more stuff the next year.
yeah, how would you say like your relationship with Jaquay just like kind of has influenced you know, your music and like the way you perform up to now?
I mean, she's my sister. You know, she's like my musical sister. We both, our favorite singer is Stevie Wonder. We're both like scholars of funk and soul, but she's even more of a scholar of hip hop because she knows bars. Like we do like a rap medley because she knows every freaking word to everything. But what was interesting, I didn't know until halfway into like gigging with her. She's like, yeah, I remember 412. Like, you were like my favorite band, and you don't know this, but we met at your release party, and we did this. There was a place in the strip called I don't know, it was a big church. It's like it was where McDonald's used to be. It'll come back to me, but that was our first true sellout with no opener. It was nuts, ridiculous. And afterwards, we were selling CDs and signing them. And she said that for her 21st birthday, someone got her a ticket for her birthday. She went to the show by herself. And then we were autographing, you know, CDs. And she was like nervous to meet me because I was kind of like the weird rock guy. And she always felt like that, but couldn't be that in Black culture. And I was like super nice, like, yeah, I'll sign you. So that's actually when I met her. And I had no idea. It was like years later.
Did you ever think about that, man? Just like even again with you know, sporadic and like even going into Formula 4 and 2, what you represented to people in like you know, kind of that.
No, it was more when I represented to myself and like, and what did it, you know, if I worried about that, I always knew that it was always on the outside of everything. So I grown really comfortable with not fitting in, you know, like I still don't fit in really, you know what I mean? Like I just kind of make my own lane and carve that. I just kind of accepted it, but I didn't know what that meant to anybody else, you know what I mean? Because to me, it was just like, I got to get us on that show. I got to hang these flyers. Like I was always in this sort of like in the moment element of it.
Do you even like, you know, see it now just because like, you know, obviously like you're doing stuff for yourself and like you're gonna continue to, you know what I mean? But it's just like there's gotta be someone who's just like, damn, like I'm like, you know, like this black kid, like I like rock, I'm like obviously like, you know, like I like hip hop too, but like I kinda like both and like I'm taking like from here and here. It's just like, you know, do you feel yourself kinda like just as you know, get
more and more and more and more into it, it's like kind of carving the path for that kid.
I mean, if it's happening, I don't know it's happening. You know what I mean? Like, people influence me. Living Color influence me. You know, Bad Brains, Public Enemy. Like, you know, like, but also a lot of like white artists that just were ripping it up, and I was like, that is fire. I want to do that. You know, so I didn't have like, but Rick James was a huge influence, and Prince and Michael Jackson. So I don't know what that is for others, but I do always try to like keep it in a positive light, you know, and let people know that there is a way to do anything you want to do. But some of it's like, how do you carry yourself? How's your tact? Like, if there's a wall, then maybe you don't have to break it down. Maybe you just go around it. You know what I mean? It doesn't always have to be a battle.
Yeah, facts, right? You know,
know what I
you just
mean?
gotta, think sometimes.
There might be another way, you know, even if it takes longer. You know, all that stuff like has led me to what I do today, which is I'm the event coordinator in community engagement for the Warhol / the Pop District, right? And the only reason I bring that up is because it's all those years of playing music and all those years of bartending, because I used the same strategy in bartending. I branded myself. I had a Nasty Nash, which was my band name in Formula 412. And I just, because I realized that the businesses are actually like cousins, right? Like, you don't have music business without booze, food. There's not a bar. You don't play a show and there's not food or drink. The culture is the same. It's sex, drugs, rock and roll, money, ego, attention, power. It's all the same things, right? And personalities. So I'm like, oh, well, if I'm a famous or popular bartender in the city, then it makes it much easier to reach more people versus being like, if I were just going after it as a guitar player, I would reach this many people. But if I'm a bartender that meets thousands of people a week, I can reach way more people that way.
Actually,
in person.
I want to kind of give respect to too before we get to the Pop District, because that is such a dope just collective and initiative.
Thanks, man.
That shit is
Have you guys been there?
incredible. No, not yet. Well, like maybe in passing, but like I just like didn't realize what it was at the time.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
I'll invite you guys for a tour.
Oh,
we're doing
no,
a tour
absolutely,
in July.
absolutely. No,
We're
that'll
building
be
a music venue.
dude. No,
Like, it's
that'll
about to
be
get really hairy.
no, dude, would love to.
Yeah.
No, would love to do that, man. But
Okay.
just before we touch on that, like, how did you do? Because like you were in like 10, pretty big bands. You know what I mean, for like a combined 12 years, like before you got into Nashville. Like, how did you handle, especially just like within Formula 4 and 2, like just the ego, the personalities, like if there was any?
Oh yeah, there totally was. I mean, like, for me, it was like challenging because the type of like band guy I am. I'm like, all right, we get together a few times a week. We rehearse.
I'm in that. Like, if I were to be in a band, I'd be
I'm
that
very
guy.
grassrootsy.
Yeah, right.
But like, I wasn't used to all the hip hop bravado and all that stuff. Like, I was like, can we just practice while y'all mad right now? What's going on?
Why y'all mad? But man, we're chilling, though. You don't gotta throw your arms in the corner like that.
We're in the same band.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
what are you doing?
We're on the same team.
That was different.
Yeah,
That was new
right.
for me, and because I just wanted to create. Like, I was kind of just like a kid about it. I just want to make music, man. I just want to play guitar. But then my role, originally I was just the guitar player. And then I was like the popular guitar player. And then it was like I'm running the band with my bandmate, because we would sell tickets. And I was slinging tickets like crack in the 80s, because people would just come to the bar and buy them. Hey, I work Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. Come through. I got your tickets. Like, if we had a concert that was, I don't know, 210, I could sell like 180 of them myself. Like, I just hustled it, and I promoted it too. Like, yeah, they just kind of, I just understood how that worked, and so, the ego stuff, like, it was what it was, but at the end of the day, it was sort of like, yeah, but did you hit that note right? You know what I mean? Are you hitting these songs? Are you making these beats? And then we kind of figured out, okay, we got to work together. I mean, a band, just like being a manager or a CEO, you're managing personalities. It's not positions, it's personalities. All right, you can't say this to that guy because he's going to shut down. You have to say it like this if you want him to get that thing done. This guy, you can't say it like that because he's going to be offended. So you need to present it in this manner. And then you know what I mean? You're still being yourself, but like, you have to cater to how those people are. It's just like in any relationship, right? Somebody say something, you decide, you're like, why are you talking to me like that? somebody else say, you're like, okay, cool, I'll do it.
No, real shit though, man. Nah, like all that matters, bro. All that definitely matters. So yeah, no, like I just wanted your perspective on that, because just just for him being a rapper, like he only has to deal with himself for like the most part, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like he doesn't really have to deal with egos or just like other people unless like he's collaborating on something or like what I mean?
Yeah.
Then it's just like okay, like you can kind of more pick and choose like who you collaborate with in that vein, but I'm like a band, bro, like that's a whole different beast for real, like
I feel fortunate. I think Nashville has all the best elements of every band I've been in. Like it, something about adding the female element, and she goes hard. She leveled it up, and I think that brings people in. She has the voice to command that power, but like there's still a softness because you have a woman, so we can do something super heavy. I'm like, I want to do this metal riff, but like rap over it. But then we'll do like Fleetwood Mac, and then people are more blown away that we did Fleetwood Mac because they're kind of like
Fleetwood Mac and
I think, wait, what is this? And they kind of don't know what it is, and then she starts singing. They're like, oh my god, they're doing it. And by the end, we turn it into a heavy song, and it's just like, I mean, still to this day, you're not really used to seeing black people thrash. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, whoa. But it's just right at home for me. I'm like, I've been waiting to do this.
So, touching on the pop string, and for anyone who doesn't know, man, that's like an initiative where, and I just pulled a quote from you, like you don't want to feel like the next Andy Warhol has to leave Pittsburgh to become the next Andy Warhol.
You should be able to grow that here. This is a great city to
on,
grow your art.
Type that shit, man.
It's a good place to work on your craft, figure out how to do it, figure out what not to do, because a lot of times people will say things about local and they'll always compare it to another city. And I get so annoyed. I'm like, you guys are thinking way too small. You should travel. And it's like, somebody had to bring Taylor Swift here, right? Like, yeah, she's a megastar, but someone local brought her here. So who was that? What's that circle? How do they navigate? Like, stop thinking about like the little space that we're operating in. Like, national acts come here, so that means someone local booked them. Like, think bigger, figure out how to put yourself in these right spaces. Don't get in the way of yourself, because on the way up, somebody might be down here, but when that changes, and you find out, oh, that's the guy running that now. Oh, for instance, the guy who got me for the Pop District, Formula 412, there was a thing called Thrival back in the day. It was like a music and technology festival, ran for like 5 years. The first one was in what is now Bakery Square, like where all those apartments are, where it was all flat, and you had, what was it, Reisenstein and all that, and they knocked all that stuff down. And then it was like Obama School, and then they turned it into a field, built a stage there. It was us, De La Soul, Frightened Rabbit, and RGD2. We were the first band that he ever booked. Years later, he starts the Pop District. I'm bartending, hating my job, like trying to get out of it. Couldn't see my way out of it because I worked so much. He's like, I have a project for you. I want to talk to you about it. That's how it started. And out of all the artists he ever worked with, I'm the only one to send him a thank you card, he said.
That's crazy. And like, how long has that been, within the initiative itself?
2016.
Okay, wow. And
15, 16, something like that.
And
maybe even earlier than that, yeah.
Okay, and did you get named, the events coordinator then, or was that like a little bit later?
No, I mean, they came to me in like 2019 before it was even started. And then it was like, yeah, I want to do it. I was so desperate. Like, I want it. Didn't know what it was, but I wanted it. I knew it was different than what I was already doing. I didn't want to sling drinks anymore. And did an interview, like an impromptu interview, and then it's like, all right, well, we'll be in touch. And then I had like a soft interview, and then like 6 months went by. It was like, wait, we're getting this all started. There's this company in New York. They want to make sure they don't know who you are. They want to know, like, why did we want you versus who they could have do this thing? So then I had to like interview with 3 people, all phone interview. And then that went well, and then nothing, just didn't hear anything. And then I hit him up in 2020, and it was like 2 weeks before COVID hit. He was like, yeah, it's funny you hit me up. We're just starting to have talks about that. And then it was like COVID shut it down. I remember having his business card on my bathroom mirror on some like mental stuff. And then I took it down, And then that was it. And I just like, all right, I'm going to go a different direction. And then it sort of came back around. I think it's when I stopped chasing and wanting it so bad. I wasn't ready for it. The level, I mean, this is like serious high level stuff. I wasn't right. I wasn't there yet.
Yeah, yeah. And just for, for people who may not know, just, like describe the initiative and it's like, kind of what it contains and.
So you have the Warhol. It's the most recognizable brand in the world, right? Art brand. And then underneath that, you have the Pop District. So imagine that the more progressive, forward thinking. Yeah, like, okay, being in museum's one thing, but what if you have the backing and power of the museum and that brand of that scale, but then you create a creative, not agency, but like creative company underneath that. So we're all creative. They create content. We do content from companies from Dell to aerospace companies, right? Pittsburgh Ballet Theater, Miami Ballet. Then you have Warhol Academy, which is like an educational component, which just got certified to be an actual certificate, like a school. We're the first to ever do it. It's never right. And then you have all these other components. Within that, we have a headquarters right next to the Warhol. We're building the venue. So now when people want to rent out the Warhol, because you can only rent out the lobby, there's millions of dollars of art, right? You'll have a music venue that's going to be bringing economy to the north side and to that region, but then it's also going to have a rooftop deck, and also we can rent out space. We're turning down 300 to 400 like rentals and weddings a year right now. Now we can do that to sustain that economy. But my favorite part of it is really that we're creating programs that people who are underprivileged and underserved can go upskill and really like learn marketing and learn filming and learn editing and learn all these things that make you super competitive. And the thing that's nice about it, it's not like they go to class and just like do this and then get a grade. They're on site doing the real work. Like the Warhol's Instagram and TikTok's run by Black kids, like, but they're working along with, we have meetings and we have Zooms and there's schedules, and it's teaching them the culture of how to thrive in like the economy as an artist. That's the most dope part. I couldn't imagine if that existed when I was younger doing art stuff,
If you just kind of like even stumbling onto something like that, like you're just like, what it could, just like the lanes that like, it just could have opened up for you. Maybe like, you didn't have to experience as much friction, like doing certain stuff, like if you had like stuff like that.
And just having someone to say, you should do it like this. Hey, we have a deadline. Deadline means we have a deadline, but if you don't know that, then you just don't know. And then you screw up a few times. But if you have like someone who's been in the game and they're saying, no, this is how we do it. There's politicians walking through there. You never know who's walking through the office every day. Like, people are always watching. Even at, like, on one hand, it's like, don't have an ego so much that you think everybody's watching, right? But don't be so naive to think people aren't watching. It's like a happy medium. Yeah, because if you mess up, they're going to let you know. You know what I mean? And it can get in the way of progress, because I've watched people not get things because of something they posted online. They don't even get considered. They don't even know that they didn't even know that they were out of the running.
Like as far as like it was inappropriate, or like it just didn't represent.
It's all of it. It's just the tone. If let's say there was a company and they're a multi-million-dollar company and they really like you, so they're kind of keeping an eye on you, and you post one thing that seems a little off color. Now, I don't mean race color. I mean like just a little off color. Like, will that turn into dollars? Could he represent our brand? I didn't like that move. And then they move on to the next person, and you don't even know that you missed out on the opportunity. I've seen that happen thousands of times. So I'm always like, I don't tiptoe. I just handle myself in a certain capacity. And I like that that's kind of how it is at that space for these kids, and adults too, but mostly for the kids,
You said if you had gotten this position earlier, like it was, to our level, like you weren't ready. What about being immersed in it now made you kind of realize you weren't ready for that?
Because I was really immersed in bar culture and working in a restaurant. It's just a different culture, you know what I mean? Like, I'm grateful because it's part of why I'm succeeding in this space. But, all I did was work. I worked so much that it got in the way of the music, and I had weird mentality about like, oh, I got to work a lot to support the music. But I was like, that's actually backwards. I wouldn't even tell people I was a musician. Because you met me, you'd be like, oh, what's your name? Byron. Oh, cool. What do you do? Oh, I work at Harris Girl, bartend. I was like identifying myself as that thing. So I was actually getting the results because I was putting that in the universe. I'm a bartender. What comes with bartender culture? Drinking, working a lot, not eating that much, not sleeping well, making a lot of money, maybe, you know what I mean? Maybe not sustaining relationships, blah, blah, blah. And you can excel in it. I'm not knocking the game, but those are part of it. And as soon as I started telling people I was a musician when they met me, all of a sudden I started gigging more. All of a sudden I made more money playing music than I did bartending. It was like almost overnight. I was like, took that long? So I think part of it was just the way I conducted myself in that space really wouldn't translate into what this, you know, now I'm dealing with like lawyers and legal documents and you know, government officials, you know, like not that I couldn't handle myself before, but I don't know if I could handle, I just wasn't prepared for what it requires. You know, I've only been doing it a year, so it's coming up on a year. Yeah.
Just if you can, like, you know, speak on, you know, like, I don't want to, you know, ruin any surprises, but it's like, you know, anything down the hatch. Like, I know, like you said, you just got the certification for that academy, which is incredible. You know what I mean? So, like, is there any, you know, programs people can expect, you know, to come up? Or
there's programs that people can sign up for marketing, and all you have to do is go to the popdistrict.org. All the things are right there, and if they sign up for it, I'm telling you, you'll get, not only will you get paid to do the stuff, but you'll get a certificate that can kind of put you in a different space. But really, for me, the value is like the connections you make. You would be surprised. Like now I'm on the phone with banks. Not like, hey, can I get a loan? I'm like, it's the people that like run stuff because they want to do an event and I'm the one that has to book it. That never would have been the case before, you know, and maybe they wouldn't have talked to me if I didn't have this backing, you know, like these people co-sign, like this is who you talk to, you know, like we did a wellness kind of in-office retreat with the Dalai Lama's doctor. Crazy. Because I played a TED Talk at the Warhol, and I played one song, he did a speech, was gone, he lives in India or something, came back, was walking him through the office. I was like, I swear I've met you before. He's a complete monk, you know, and then he's like, hey, I want to do a thing, here's my number. And then we did like a little kind of sitting Indian style, like, yeah, right there in the office.
yeah, just like, what else did he teach you? Just like about like,
I think a lot of it was like breathing and like, there was some breathwork stuff, but then it was also self-awareness and like forgiveness, not being so harsh on yourself. You know, we can all kind of talk to ourselves kind of crappy when we don't hit what we think we're going to hit, and just hearing it from a different perspective. But for that to be at my job is crazy, you know, and just like the quality of like video that's coming out of there and content, and just learning different ways to navigate on that. It's just making me sharper, you know, and because I share an office with a guy who had the #1 documentary on Netflix last year called Our Father. And it's a real creepy doc about this doctor in Indiana who's a fertility doctor. He was impregnating people with his stuff.
Yeah, as you do.
For like 30 years.
Yeah.
And then somebody,
yeah, man.
and then nobody caught him.
Right. That's
and this lady went and did one of those like, you know, bloodline tests, like, you know, ancestry.com or something.
Shit, yeah, right.
It was like, you got like 89 brothers and sisters.
Oh,
yeah, so this guy did this documentary.
Okay.
And it like blew up on Netflix. They like helped change laws against the stuff. He's my office mate.
That's fucking nuts. Like, I mean, you would say like a pretty, you know, successful year, as you know.
It's going all right.
Yeah,
I'm trying to take it up a notch.
No,
but that's what I mean about placement, right? Like, I wasn't chasing that. I knew I wanted to be in a good space, but I knew at the end of the day, as corny as it sounds, you just have to work on yourself. Like, not just like work on your skill, like you got to be better. I had to get better. I wasn't being the best version of myself. You know what I mean? I had to be honest, like, am I half-assing it? Because just because you're hitting it at 100 doesn't necessarily mean you're hitting it at 100. It might be really a 75 and you're just around some 50% people. You know what I mean? And your shit seems like you're crushing harder. So you're around some half-ass shit and you're like, oh, I got this. I'm going hard.
If you 50% get the fuck away from
You know what I'm saying? That's a real thing though.
That's crazy. Like, it just, cause like, you know, it can just, you know, skew the the
It
perspective.
does, and you're just in it. You don't even know. It's not a bad thing as a person, but if like, for instance, when I bartended, if any achievement I wanted to go after, whether it was like, I don't want to drink that much, or I'm gonna work out tomorrow, I always got ridiculed. Even though it was out of love and it was kind of like funny and sarcastic. I'm like, how come every time I want to do something good, people are like, let me guess, you gonna work out tomorrow? Well, yeah, why's that bad? Well, now I'm just around people who work out, so nobody says that. I got to keep up with them, right? But if you're around people who feel bad about the fact that you work out, they're gonna make you feel bad about it. You know, same thing with work ethic. Like, right? People are like, oh, you go so hard. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going hard enough. And they're like, why do you always say that? I'm like, because I know there's another level, because I've been around some other level stuff, and now I feel like I'm catching up to everybody that I work with. They're all upper tier. And that's not a diss to myself, but it's like, you should be uncomfortable. You should feel like, oh, I'm kind of the wackest one. Let me get it together. You know, same thing with music. You know, like, people are like, oh, you're really good at guitar. I'm like, dude, I wish I could pay for lessons every day right now. Like, I'm not nearly as good as I want to be, so I'm okay. I still like what I do, but I'm not comfortable at all. I'm
like you're always trying to like improve.
Yeah, but I'm like annoying about it. I'm like, you need to get better, dude.
Nah, I mean,
Kind of whack.
I can't tell. I think I've seen you perform, man, and it's a very ethereal experience. Honestly, man, you
Thanks.
are very
I
very
appreciate
talented,
that.
man, and like I just can't wait to.
I
see
just
more
love
from
it.
you. No, but facts.
It's a true love, you know. I
So,
think that's why I'm always trying to push you better.
Byron Nash, thank you so much for fucking joining us, bro.
Thanks, guys.
Like, this was such a dope conversation. Like, I was like so geeked up before this, man. It was really great to sit down with you, man. So
It was nice to come right off of the studio.
Nah,
'Cause I was like
thanks,
all
Ryan.
vibed out.
Yeah, jazzed up. So, man, again, this is the part of the pod where just anything you got coming up performance wise, pop district wise, where people can find you. Definitely go and plug away, man. But thank you so much again for chopping it up with us, brother. Appreciate you, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, the floor is yours, bro.
Jesus. ByronNashMusic.com has all the dates on it. I barely tell you what day it is right now. I just know I got gigs lined up. They're on the calendar on there. And then if anyone wants to come to the Pop District, just contact me, Byron at thepopdistrict.org. Come on through. I'll give you a tour, show you what we're doing.
There we go, man. Listen, MIC Podcast, episode 90, community content. You get it all here. Byron Nash in the building, and we're out. Peace.